Jennifer, you were with him for those years, and you're going from Michael Jackson now to Jeff Beck. Just tell us about how that all started out.
Well, I joke that I stalked him. When I found out that Michael Jackson was going to do the Dangerous Tour, I knew we were going to England, and I go, he lives there. I know he lives there somewhere, and I'm going to find him. And after every show we did with Michael, I would ask the Sony reps that were hanging out after if there was any connection and could I invite him to a show. And finally somebody came through, and he got VIP tickets, VIP parking. 2 opening acts went on. This was at Wembley Stadium, and then Michael canceled. Of all dates, he canceled for some reason, and I was devastated. And I thought, oh, God, of all nights. And so 80,000 pissed off people are leaving the stadium, and they got the band, which is all in full makeup, into a bus and closed the curtains so nobody could see who it was, because it could be dangerous if people are mad. I wasn't having it. I thought Jeff was in the VIP tent, and all these people are coming out, and I'm going across him with my hair 3 feet high, going, man, I'm going to meet this man one way or another. And as it turns out, he was turned away at the gate. He just came for the main act, and I called him and said, I don't know when or if they're going to make up this show, but can I meet you anyway? And he said, sure. And I went the next day and met him at the Townhouse Studios in London, where he was recording his rockabilly record. And this is so many years ago, I had one of those old school video cameras, long before the smartphone. And I listened to what he was doing, and at a break, I asked him if he could play Blue Wind, because I had learned every song, every solo on Blow by Blow and Wired. And I wanted him to play that for me. And it's like the heavens opened up. I had a battery that lasted 10 seconds, but in those 10 seconds, I learned so much, because although I was playing the same notes that he was playing on the record, he played them differently. And I saw these microscopic bends he was doing. I was going, oh, that's the sound. We hung out for a couple hours after, and it was actually a little bit awkward, because although I knew all his music, I didn't know him as a person. This was long before social media, and the only thing I knew was the odd interview on the radio that you had to stay up for. It wasn't archived on the internet. Or there was a boutique record shop I used to go to that would get British magazines, and I would go through them for hours looking for anything on Jeff. And thank God I had 2 friends with me to keep the conversation going. So, that was my bucket list, to get an autograph. And I left him with my debut CD that had just come out. And I had also done a video for Flight of the Bumblebee where I was covered with 100,000 bees, like you do. And MTV was showing it at the time, and they gave me a copy along with an interview. And you can't play that format VHS in America, so I gave that to him as well. And got my autograph. And I will say, I was on my way, except that he drove me back to the hotel in his Batmobile, going, anytime he had 600 yards free without cars, he'd be flooring it.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, man, if I'm going to die in a fiery car crash, this is the way to go. It doesn't get more rock and roll than this. And, I thought that was the end of it. I'd never see him again. And he called me a month or so later and said, I finally had a chance to listen to your record properly, and let's record together. And I just peed my pants. That wasn't even a dream I had, because he didn't play with other guitar players.
Yeah.
So, it was actually 5 years before it happened, but I would see him backstage at various tours he was doing, and he'd always say, we're going to do this thing. And I would think, well, I know how it's when somebody's in your face, and then you get inspiration, and then you're onto this or onto that. He called. He said, we have a tour in Italy, and come play. And I thought, are you bonkers? We've never even played together. At that point, he had the faith of my first 2 records to go on, but still, you don't know how much trickery went on in recording. And so I forced an audition on myself in that I had a session I was doing in Milan, and I figured as long as I'm over there, I'm going to fly down. I learned most of the Guitar Shop record, and I went to his house and played it just to make sure he wasn't bonkers. And that night, I played, 3 or 4 songs, and then he started playing with me. And then his wife, Sandra, brought out the whiskey at midnight. And I had to fly out and do a session the next day, and it wasn't good. But man, we had a good time. So that's how it all began.
It's pretty powerful when you think about just the intensity of his personality.